So before we get to a check on the news, Jonathan Lemire, I want to go back to the conversation about Sarah Sanders and ask the question, where does the media go from here? What is the guidance? What is the editorial guidance? Because she didn't just go on Fox and double down on her lies. She was on ABC with George Stephanopoulos, and she spent 6 minutes saying, I really actually just used one wrong word, and she lied again about her lie that under oath, in order to avoid jail time, she admitted to, but then went back to lying, back in real life, or however you want to put it in cuckoo land, which is Trump world. But for us, media, for journalists, do we interview Sarah Sanders? Do we put her on the airwaves at this point? What happens to briefings if they ever come back? Where do we go with a situation like this?
This is another example of how this White House is different from all those that have come before it. Not to say that there have been other press secretaries who have shaded the truth or deliberately omitted stuff, but we don't see what we have seen from her predecessor, Sean Spicer, and now from Sarah Sanders, the outright falsehoods, the outright lies. And when the American, not just the media, but the American public is to rely on the White House normally as an authority of truth, where you can believe and trust in your government. And I do think it creates a tricky situation going forward. It's similar to what we've heard debates about Kellyanne Conway when she's been on shows and traded in falsehoods, and there have been questions about whether or not she should be given airtime. I think networks and media outlets are going to have similar decisions here about Sarah Sanders. You raise briefings. They're an endangered species. We've only had a couple this entire year. And believe me, as a White House reporter, as a member of the White House Correspondents Association, and as what we'd like to think is a representative of the public trying to do the public's job, we urge them to come back. We would like to have her at the podium where we could ask her questions and hold her accountable for this misstatement and others.
But she's never accountable.
No.
She's never accountable, and it's just continued lies.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have Kellyanne on, because it's just literally 20 minutes of nothing.
John Meacham,
of lies.
I was watching Rudy Giuliani on this weekend, and first of all, I don't understand why anybody would have Sarah Sanders on if they know that she's going to lie, and Kellyanne Conway if they know that they're going to lie. And again, this isn't opinion. This isn't subjective. It is objective. You can stack their words up against words they've used in the past, and they just lie, and they do it openly. And you can get if they would like to get angry about that, would be glad to all day tomorrow showing their lies. But the same thing with Rudy Giuliani. I was watching some hosts interview Rudy Giuliani, and he was saying things that just were objectifiably false. And I sat there wondering, okay, well, if you've got to let this guy on, despite the fact he's going to lie, why don't you interrupt him and call him out on every lie as they're moving forward? I don't understand. That's not even-handed journalism. That's just allowing a propagandist to come on and tell knowable lies.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this weekend, too. There was a publisher out in Colorado, I think the Denver Post, named Palmer Hoyt, who, during the McCarthy era, raised the question of why should newspapers, the central vernacular of the time, why should newspapers simply report what a United States senator says if there is no evidence for it? And if there's a plausible case that this wasn't at all true. And what McCarthy, and one of the reasons I was thinking about McCarthy, obviously, is that Mayor Giuliani was doing his best to do his Roy Cohn impersonation yesterday, was that McCarthy understood that if he made a charge, particularly close to deadline, he understood when afternoon papers went to press, he understood when morning papers went to press, and so he would make outlandish announcements and pronouncements before anybody had a chance to check them. And in the age of wire services, it would flash across the country. And this guy Hoyt out in Denver said, perhaps we need to do what so many places are doing now, the fact checking. Do you put what he says in a particular place and assess its validity? And I think we're clearly past that point. We should certainly be doing that. People have decided, it's an interesting thing. It's also the thing that I keep wondering about is to what extent is this Trumpian universe of they're not even myths, that's an insult to myths, of lying and dishonesty and alternative realities, alternative facts, to what extent is that a reflection of the culture as well as now shaping the culture? And that's a big question. But there's something really disturbing about the fact that so many folks in the country are comfortable with this level of dishonesty. And as I think about it, I suspect there are two reasons. One is most of the members of your former party have decided that tax cuts and Supreme Court justices are worth it. And on then there's a kind of a base of Trump folks who are culturally alienated from people who sit around and talk like we do on television, and they don't want to be told what to think. And that combination of those two tributaries has created this really disturbing moment.
Well, it is a disturbing moment. It's also disturbing. I don't want anybody to think the way I tell them to think. I want them to actually read. I want them to actually go on Google. I want them to actually be armed with facts and then look at those facts and compare them to what the President of the United States says and just be educated to facts. And if that is elitism, if somebody considers that to be elitism, you're in really sad shape, because I'm just asking that they read facts. They go to their computer, their Google machine, and see what actually is the truth. Not fake news, not fake. The testimony of Sarah Sanders, the testimony of Don McGahn, the testimony of people who have worked for Donald Trump for 2.5 years, in some cases 3.5 years, and then just look at the facts. It's all laid bare. And don't just blurt out like you're an idiot fake news. Actually read the information and then draw your own conclusions. And I will say, Mika, I don't think reporters should have White House staff on who repeatedly lie.
Correct.
They should have Trump supporters on, and there is a way to thread the needle, to look at the report and say, yes, there's some things in there that are very devastating. Obviously, though, Robert Mueller didn't find that he committed a crime. It's now time to move forward. Those are the sort of spokespeople for the Trump administration, or that support Donald Trump, that should come on television programs. But we can't have people coming on programs that are going to deliberately lie.
I mean, in 6 minutes talking about her lie and doubling down on her lie is time you don't get back. And are we a part of it? If we continue to put people like Sarah Sanders or Kellyanne Conway on television, when you know you're going to spend that entire interview debating their lies and having them lie again about those lies, then deflecting from the actual implications all of this has on our country. It's time to take a stand, I think. If she won't step down, we need to step up.